In my 4 years of farming, it's been the failures, not the successes, that have taught me the most. And so, in hopes of learning something, let's talk about the 10 worst flowers of 2022. This list might be a little controversial. I'm gonna have flowers on this list that might be the best flowers for someone else, but I have to consider my specific growing region, my specific growing conditions, my specific market, all of those details when I make that list for myself. And so hopefully in the details that I share, you'll understand why they're the worst. Here on Red Roof Family Farm, we have grown a huge variety of crops over the 4 years that we've been in business. This year, we narrowed in on only flowers. Previously, we'd been growing vegetables and flowers, more of a focus on veggies, but this year it was all about the flowers. And so I finally had the time to focus on which specific flowers do the best for us. In a previous video, I've already talked about which were the best of the year, but I think it's just as important to take note of the worst. So let's get to it. Number 1 is Chabaud Carnations, and I really wanted to like these. They look like the most incredible heirloom carnation you've ever seen. They have an amazing range of colors. They have this incredible smell, but they were so little that there just wasn't much I could do with them. The flowers themselves were very small. They were clusters, but they weren't enough of a cluster to make any sort of an impact on a bouquet. The stems were really short. You know, we're used to seeing these big, long, beautiful, big, fat-headed carnations at the grocery store. These just weren't that. The stems were also very brittle. Anytime I went to work with them, the few times I could find a stem long enough to use, 50% of the time I was snapping the stem and, losing the flower completely. I do think there is a chance that part of the issue is my growing of them. I could have grown them a lot better. I just don't think that I could grow them well enough to make up for all the problems that I had. Maybe if I was doing wedding work, needing those smaller secondary blooms more, I would consider it, but as it is, I don't see these in my future. Thanks to our sponsor, Peak Life, I'm out here getting rid of garbage seeds, like these Scabiosa that I'm gonna talk about next. I'm so busy with the farm that I don't have time for a skincare routine, but I always have time for tea. My middle-aged skin needs more than dirt rubbed into it, and the Radiant Skin Duo helps restore skin's moisture and elasticity. Sun Goddess Matcha is my morning pick-me-up, and it's deliciously creamy. It has powerful green tea antioxidants to firm and brighten skin and chlorophyll to clarify, and is quadruple toxin screened for purity. Then, BT Fountain helps keep me hydrated while I work with its natural electrolytes and minerals. It's sugar-free and refreshing without the overpowering electrolyte taste. It also has hyaluronic acid and clinically proven ceramics to improve skin elasticity. Together, the Radiant Skin Duo is like a facial in a drink. Best of all, it has zero prep. All you do is add water, so it's easy for me to prepare while working or grabbing these cats. One skin lesson I've learned on the farm is how much staying hydrated affects my skin. Too much sun and too little liquids is a bad combo. So anything that helps me stay hydrated and supports my skin from the inside is interesting to me. For a limited time, get 15% off plus free shipping for life on Peak's Radiant Skin Duo. You also get a complimentary starter kit with a beaker and frother when you start your new ritual. Number 2 is Scabiosa, and I need to clarify, this is the annual Scabiosa, not the perennial Scabiosa, because this year for the first time I grew the Fama series Scabiosa, which is the perennial, and it was incredible. I had 100 plants of it, and I want 300 more amazing flowers. But the annual Scabiosa, not so much. The flowers were so small that kind of didn't feel worth it for me to go out and try to pick through these wiry, unruly plants. Here on our farm, we sell something similar to a grocery store bouquet. Our customers don't really care about what specifically is in the bouquet, just that it looks really beautiful. And so these little fussy bits and pieces like the Scabiosa are just really hard for me to make any sort of money on. Yet again, I can understand the value of it, but we won't be growing it here again on the farm. Number 3 is Sweet William, and this I had high hopes for. We are always looking for more flowers to fill in our selection in June. Here on the farm, tulips are in May, they're followed by late May, early June having ranunculus. But after that, we have this gap. We have this window before our warm weather loving annuals like zinnias and sunflowers start blooming in July. And Sweet William is one of those flowers that bloom in that, dry spell for me. Sweet William is a dianthus, the same as the carnations, and the problems that I had with it are pretty much exactly the same. I found the Sweet William stems very brittle, they didn't get very tall, the flowers, I wanted something big and showy, and they just were a lot more petite than I was expecting. I've decided no more Sweet William because we actually planted a bunch of perennial phlox this year, and it's gonna do pretty much the exact same thing for me as I was hoping to find in Sweet William. It's gonna bloom in that June window. It has the exact same cluster flower head look. The difference is my phlox heads will be nice and big and showy, whereas my Sweet William were these pathetic little discs. Number 4 is Dusty Miller. And I've said I would never grow this again before, and I still grew it again this year. Last year I planted it for the first time because I love it. You can't find anything that does that same silver gray that you get in Dusty Miller. The problem is it just never grew into anything very useful for me. I had some last year that overwintered and survived, and in the spring they actually grew stems that were long enough that I could cut them and use them quite well. But we get winters so cold here that Dusty Miller doesn't really survive. It was a fluke that I just had those few. I wish I could grow this better. I love the look fresh. It's even better dried. It stays in that same look and it looks so different from anything else. It's clearly not meant to be growing in my conditions. I know Dusty Miller can be useful. I just don't think it can be useful for me. Number 5 is Lime Nosento Marigolds. And in the sister video to this, I said that one of my top 10 flowers of the year is the Cocoa Marigolds. And the Cocoa Marigolds does everything that the Lime Nosento Marigold doesn't do. The Cocoa Marigold has this color of flower that goes with everything, and I want to use it in every bouquet. The Lime Nosento is this like dirty yellow. It was like a muddy yellow color, which instead of making my bouquets look better, kind of made them all just look worse. The cocoa had a really nice side branching structure. I can make this cut, it would be fairly straight. It was easy to use in bouquets. The Nosento was kind of rambly and like bent and twisted. It was very difficult for me to find good stems, and so I didn't end up cutting very much off of these plants. People love the Nosento marigolds because they have no scent. But for me and for my customer, no one was really complaining about the marigold scent at all, so that wasn't of value. And most of the smell of marigolds comes from the foliage, so if you really wanted, you could just strip that off and keep only flowers if you really hated the smell. I was actually surprised how much I didn't like this because I've been loving marigolds so much. For me, it's proof that variety can really make or break the success of a crop on the farm. Number 6 is lemon basil. And in the same way that the Lime Nosentos kind of muddied up and brought down the beauty, in my opinion, of my bouquets, I find the same issue with the basil. I love using basil as a foliage in my bouquets. It's great. It's this summer annual. It grows really well here for me. But the problem with basil as a foliage is you need to pick it when it's more mature. If you pick it when the leaves are at its prime, like you would for eating a basil, it's gonna wilt. It's not gonna last very long in the vase. You have to wait till the stem is woody, till it's set flowers. It's kind of, you know, past when you would be using it for culinary purposes. My favorite basil, which I still love and I'm gonna grow every year, is cinnamon basil, and it has this incredible purple color. And as it ages, it gets, you know, more sophisticated and rich in its tones. The flower stems, they have these amazing variety of different shades of purple. But the lemon basil, as it ages, it goes kind of brown, and the leaves end up getting these like spots on them. And it looks like it's sad and dead and not intentional every time I use it. Even though I've grown it every single year of the farm so far, I think I need to recognize that this isn't what I want. I have better foliages, I have better greeneries that I can use, and it's time to retire this crop that really should have been retired a long time ago. Number 7 is eucalyptus. And stick with me on this one because I love eucalyptus. My issues with eucalyptus have nothing to do with it, you know, in my bouquets, you know, it's nothing to do with the incredible smell that I wish, you know, I could be having more often. Eucalyptus is gorgeous and I want to grow it. The problem is I think I'm just not in a place where I should be trying to grow it. I've tried to grow it multiple years now and I haven't really ever gotten any cuts off of it. Fair enough, that's me not growing it properly, but there's people in my area who do grow it properly and they only get it, you know, as tall as their shoulder. They're getting, you know, maybe an armful off of each individual plant. But considering this is something that you need to start in like December, grow in a greenhouse because it needs the heat and it needs the shelter, all of that for some stems, which are very easy to find in wholesale, you know, maybe this is something I just don't need to grow. I know when the conditions are right, it's a total weed. It's just not a weed in Canada. It's a weed in Australia, and maybe I need to bite the bullet and start looking into willows that I can use as foliage as a Canadian and give up on eucalyptus. Number 8 is Super Magic Lisianthus. And I'm not saying I don't love Lisianthus, because I do. I am obsessed with Lisianthus. We grew 1,000 of them this year and I'm growing 2,000 next year. We are all about the Lisianthus. And the Super Magic Lisianthus was actually our favorite Lisianthus of the year because the Super Magic was our blue Lisianthus, which had the most incredible color. Problem is, it was the shape of flower that I liked the least. The petals on the Super Magic were a lot longer than some of the other varieties that I grew. The shape of it, you know, was this skinny long petal. And because of that, the flower might have been a little bit bigger than some of the other flowers, but it got kind of floppy and sad looking. I really love that the Lisianthus has a rose look for me. I don't grow roses here on the farm at all, but I like the formal shape of a rose. And so there was a lot of shorter petaled Lisianthuses that I was growing that had that rose look. The Super Magic, not the same. Lisianthus is also expensive. It costs a lot for me to grow it, so I need to be selling every single stem. And my trick on the farm for how to make sure I sell every stem is to dry the things that I don't sell fresh. And the Lisianthus I love dried because they dried like roses. Roses have a beautiful shape as a dry flower. But the Super Magic, not so much. They definitely look like dead flowers dried. And so there's just no reason for me to choose that over other varieties. We're definitely getting the blue back again. The blue is a must. This year, we're just getting it as an ABC Lisianthus, not a super magic. Number 9 is Flax. And I don't get it. I saw pictures, that's why I bought it, but having grown it, I don't know how anyone is having this to be a successful flower crop. It was like insanely short. It was like 8 inches tall for me. It had these beautiful little blue flowers, but it only kind of had a single tiny weedy looking flower open at a time, and it didn't seem to have any sort of vase life. The flowers kind of in the field fell off after a day. I think the idea with the flax is that you're supposed to use it as like a grain or a seed pod, something to give visual interest, but it looked like a weed where there's so many other seed crop type things that you could grow that would do so much better. This year we had auric or quinoa as a decorative for the first time, and it was incredible. That's coming back every year. We also had some wheat that had, self-seeded as a weed on the farm, which also has me really excited. I'm like, why haven't I been growing wheat all these years? It looks amazing in the bouquets in its green form. It has me really excited about other grains I can be looking at, things like rye and stuff like that, which makes me yet again say, like, why flax? I love linen. It's great. It just maybe doesn't need to be a flower. And finally, 10 is Magic Lime Green Feverfew. My favorite color is green. And lime green especially is the #1 color that I want to be working with in bouquets. I have the lime Bennery's Giant that I've been growing year after year, and they always inspire me. They always have me excited to work with. So I wanted more lime. I went out this year and I bought pretty much everything that had lime in it. But like that lime marigold, the Magic Lime Green Feverfew isn't lime, it's a dirty, gross yellow. Feverfew is really important for me here on the farm because it's in that June window that I previously spoke about. It's available for me in that time when there isn't very many things available. So everything I can get for that window, is more valuable. But it feels like every single thing I can get is in these yellow tones, and people just don't want an all yellow bouquet as their only option. And people especially don't want a dirty yellow bouquet as their only option. Feverfew is incredible. It has this classic little daisy look, the white petals, the yellow center. I love it. And also in that same window, actual daisies are blooming, so it's fun to put together these bouquets that, feed into these very classic looks of flowers. Let's say I have a beautiful bright yellow lily, and then I add in a muddy yellow Feverfew stem to it. It's gonna take away from that beauty. It's gonna kind of tone down the whole thing and not leave it as clean and fresh. If instead I take a white Feverfew and I add it in, it's really gonna make those colors pop. Or adding a white Feverfew in with, a whole range of colors, it's not going to take away from those colors. The white is so neutral, it's gonna make it so that the main brights in the bouquet will be the dominant colors and the white will just be a nice gentle background. I really wanted lime colored Feverfew. It's not gonna happen. And I think this is also one of those learning moments for me. I'm excited when I see lime in a seed catalog, but I'm continuously being burned by what it actually looks like. So rather than seeing lime, getting excited, being like, this is gonna be the color I've been looking for, I need to recognize the limitations of flowers to be green. I know sometimes saying that something is the worst can feel really negative, but for me and my experience farming, I've found that identifying what doesn't work has been the thing that's led to strength here on the farm. We wouldn't be growing only flowers if we hadn't been every season, identifying what is selling the best, what is, growing the best, what are the things that we need to concentrate on as a farm business. What I want to achieve with a specific flower when I read about it in a seed catalog, when I see other people using it on their farms in completely different areas of the world, can't be what I force myself to do here on my farm. I have to be guided by what actually works for us. And so this list of 10, even though it's stuff that, hopefully I remember to not grow next year, getting rid of those is what's going to open up for me to be able to try 10 new items. And those 10 new items that I try will lead to my new 10 best. Every year we refine what is working for us and what's working for the business just a little bit more. And that refining is what actually makes it easier as you go further into your farming journey. And because I know a lot of these flowers have nothing wrong with them, they're just not good for me, let us know down in the comments if you have any tips about growing these and you feel that they're great for your area. Why do they work for you? I'd love to hear.